Welcome to Interviews with Innocence, a podcast about spirituality, consciousness, and exploring the wisdom our children bring into this world. I believe that our very young children are our greatest teachers. After all, they're the masters of living in the present moment, bubbling in unconditional love, enjoying the messiness of life, and curious about the universe in all its dimensions. The pure essence that young children exhibit lives within all of us. My hope is that these interviews will help us discover, embrace, and connect with the sacred core of childhood that resides within each of our hearts. I am your host, Marla Hughes. Hello. Today I am so pleased and excited to have Dr. Larry Burk on the show. Larry is a medical doctor and a certified energy healing practitioner, and he is a holistic radiologist and dream tapping coach and author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, Early Warning Signs of Cancer and Other Illnesses. Dr. Burk's transition from one of the leading MRI researchers on MRI of the knee and shoulder in the 1980s to become co-founder of Duke Integrative Medicine in the 1990s and a certified energy health practitioner in 2010 is described in his another book called Let Magic Happen: Adventures in Healing with a Holistic Radiology. Welcome to the program, Dr. Burk.
It's great to be here, and I enjoy doing these kind of interviews. So,
yes, good. Should I call you Dr. Burk or Larry? What do you prefer?
Well, if you want to talk about radiology and MRI scans, you can call me Dr. Burk. If you want to talk about coaching or EFT or any of those things, you can call me Larry. Okay.
So, great. I think I'll call you Larry today.
That's a good idea.
Well, I found out about your work through Karen Newell. I had interviewed her, and she, your name came up. I can't remember exactly why. And when I read that you had done work on dreams, I've never, really had anybody on the show other than talking about, which is very important, connecting with the afterlife and visitations and those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really interested in, what you're doing, and also that you had dove into Edgar Cayce's work. I'm a big fan of that also. And I am in the middle of taking a shamanic course too. So I know you've really dove into all those things too. So tell us about how you went from becoming one of the leading MRI researchers. How did you go from being Dr. Burk to Larry?
Good question. Yeah. I'll say it all started in 1987, and many different things, like a perfect storm of things happened. My dad got kidney cancer, and I sort of became his guide through all the alternative therapies. And so that was, and he went on like a 6-year journey, and through acupuncture and macrobiotics, all kinds of things. So that was like my initiation into alternative medicine. And then the second thing that happened was I found my first metaphysical bookstore when I moved to Philadelphia, which was the legendary Garland of Letters. And I wound up, one of my best friends in radiology took me there as a joke when I came for my interview from Pittsburgh. And so I look at all the incense and the crystals and all these woo-woo books. And he didn't realize that once I got to Philadelphia, I would go back there every week and buy another book for 2 years.
And what did you say the name of it is?
Garland of Letters.
Garland of Letters. And I'm sure that has a story behind it. Yeah, what a great name.
They're affiliated with the Sky Yoga Foundation. And it's one of the few remaining independent metaphysical bookstores, left in a big city. The Bodhi Tree bookstore that Shirley MacLaine had her experiences in closed in LA a couple years ago. So that was
my gosh, I would have thought they would have been springing up. I know we have one here called Awakenings, but wow, I can't believe so many are closing down.
Yeah, and it's a real loss. And the third thing that happened was I did watch Shirley MacLaine's movie Out on a Limb, which was a 2-part miniseries, which was way ahead of its time. And it's still available for free on YouTube. You can watch
Oh,
Out on a
wow.
Limb, which was the title of one of her books. But that movie had everything in it: out-of-body experiences, psychics, mediums, UFOs, the works. And that really blew my mind quite a bit. And she also said, why go out on a limb? You know, that's where the fruit is. So, you know,
Oh, I
and
love that.
and then um, and that was like really an unexpected, you know, thing that caught me by surprise, seeing that on mainstream TV. And that was also the harmonic convergence was happening that year.
Yeah.
And I also joined the Society of MRI Safety Committee, where we were investigating problems with MRI scanners in the early days, you know, metal objects flying into the MRI scanner, but also people being claustrophobic inside the scanner, which eventually prompted me to learn hypnosis, which led me really into alternative medicine, because we could either give people Valium. If you took a Valium by mouth, it didn't work half the time. If you gave them an IV, it worked great, but sometimes people would forget to breathe when they're in the MRI scanner, which is highly recommended if you want to live through the whole hour procedure. So
Yes.
hypnosis turned out to be a great way as an alternative to doing drugs, and people could be empowered to get through their experience, walk home drive home when they got out of the magnet. Eventually, we trained a lot of the MRI technologists how to do basic hypnosis for their
Interesting.
patients. So that was really that year was life-changing for me. I just moved from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia.
So did your dad, do you see a lot of, did it help him when he dove into all of his,
Oh yeah,
I
he
guess,
looked really healthy for 5 years. He worked full time. Um, he macrobiotics. He'd been a meat and potatoes, farm boy from
mhm.
Minnesota, and macrobiotics was a huge shift. He also did Bernie Siegel visualizations, and he really did acupuncture for pain control, and that was it. So.
Right. And then you studied acupuncture for physicians,
Yeah, and
correct?
I was interested in acupuncture way back then in 1987, but I didn't get to take the course until 1998, which was the year we founded the Duke Integrative Medicine Center. So then, yeah,
Right.
and I practiced acupuncture for 5 years at Duke, and then eventually got divorced and remarried an acupuncturist. So when I married a real acupuncturist, I decided it was time to retire. So, and
Yeah.
by that time, I mean, I had 300 hours of training and she had 3,000. So that made a magnitude of difference.
Right.
And then,
You retired from acupuncture, you
yes,
mean?
but I had learned enough hypnosis, enough acupuncture that when emotional freedom techniques came along, and I learned it in 2002, that was the perfect combination of both of those two worlds. And so I eventually wound up doing the tapping combined with the hypnosis in the usual 10-minute protocol that I do. So.
Wow, it's so inspiring to hear, physicians who, I mean, let's face it, Western civilization, many are not open to, I think it's changing, but a lot of this, alternative. And wow, you were just so open-minded and so ready for it. It sounds like. So tell us, how are you inspired to start your dream research?
So one of my closest friends in uh, 2004 had this vivid dream about being operated on by a woman surgeon on her breast, and she didn't have any symptoms, no lumps or bumps, but the dream was so vivid that she went for a mammogram the next day, and it was normal. She had pretty dense breasts, which sometimes you can't find the cancer. So radiologist said she'd come back in a year. She said, no, I think I have breast cancer, and didn't tell the radiologist why. and insisted on having an ultrasound. The radiologist said, no, we don't do ultrasounds if there's no lump or something on the mammogram. And my friend Diane said, well, I'm not leaving until you do the ultrasound. So,
Wow.
and then the radiologist goes, well, I wouldn't even know where to begin. She said, just put it right here. And that's where the dream had showed the cancer, and that's where it was. So, radiologist looks about as shocked as you are right now. So yeah, she was pretty stunned. And then a week later, Diane went for the appointment with the surgeon to get the biopsy, and it was the woman surgeon from the dream. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, and so that started your dream research.
Yeah, that
was your
started
first.
And then I had another friend have a similar experience, and another one. The third one, unfortunately, the doctors ignored her dream, and she wound up dying of metastatic breast cancer. So that was the cautionary tale. And I described these three stories in my, there's a TED Talk on my website at larryburk.com, and that TED Talk got censored.
That's what I saw.
But you can still watch it. So, and yeah, so I dedicate a lot of my talks to Sonia Lee Shield, who had that experience we never want to see repeated. So, and then once I did a survey and had 18 different women report their stories, then one of them, Kat O'Keefe Cannabis, encouraged me to write a book and was my co-author, and she was one of the star dreamers in the study. And then we started getting reports of other types of cancer. One of my high school friends who I hadn't seen in 30 plus years sent me a Facebook message, said, I had dreams about having blood in the toilet night after night until I got really worried about it, and I went and had a colonoscopy, and she found that little tiny colon cancer that had already spread to the lymph nodes, so she had to have chemo and surgery. That was 13 years ago, and she did fine. So she caught it before it had gone to her liver and other places like that. So
right. Wow. So your book, is it a compilation of these different
it's based
stories,
Dreams That Can Save Your Life, Early Warning Signs of Cancer and Other Diseases, and it's, you can see the link on my website, and it's came out in 2018, and we still get people emailing us with different stories, and my favorite story in the book is this 29-year-old woman who's got stage 4 uterine cancer. Like, she's got very little chance of surviving. She's got a single mother, and she's pretty desperate. They told her she had a 5% chance of surviving if she went through really strong chemotherapy, and that not very good odds. And this is 20 plus years ago. And so she has a dream where a silver flying saucer spaceship lands on her backyard, and the aliens get out and they come up and they whisper in her ear, "You need some interferon," which was an experimental drug back in those days. And then they gave her a little syringe full of it, and that was it. And she was a pretty experienced dreamer, so she took that as guidance from on high that she needed to get some interferon. So she went to the doctor and said, "Can I have some interferon?" And the doctor he said, how do you even know to ask for that? And she said, "Well, I had a dream about it last night." And he was so blown away that he ordered her some, and she went into remission, and 18 years later is still healthy. So
wow,
that's a great dream guidance story. So.
Yeah. It's interesting because I am doing a series on plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca, and I actually attended a retreat, and so many people talked about that. We're getting a little out there right now, but it's true. These are honest, these are true stories.
Sure.
During their experiences, having aliens come in and actually work on them and do a surgery and come out, and their condition is gone or remedied, or they know they need to have to go to the doctor. So that's a really interesting, correlation, isn't it?
Well, a good friend of mine is the most reputable UFO experiencer in North Carolina, and his name's Christopher Bledsoe, and he had a series of amazing healings. He's had 2 near-death experiences before his experience is documented in a Discovery Channel TV show from 2008. It's called, he lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's called The Fayetteville Incident. And 2007, Christopher, you couldn't ask for a better witness. He owned a multi-million-dollar construction company, was a commercial airline pilot, born again Christian, like a rock solid, guy.
Right.
Owns the record for the largest bear killed in North Carolina, So,
well, there you have
yeah,
it.
there you have it. And so apparently, at age 10, he was out bird hunting with his best friend, his best friend thought he got a bird and went to shoot again. And he blew a hole in Christopher's back about that big. He shot him point blank with a shotgun right in the back. And to this day, Christopher still has shotgun pellets coming out the other side of his chest, and a big scar in the back of his chest. And it was, the newspapers reported miraculous, the boy who survived the shooting. And then I guess years after that, he developed Crohn's disease, which, bad disease of your gastrointestinal tract.
And wait, but when he was shot, was that when he had one of his near-death experiences?
Well, he didn't know why he had a near-death experience then, but he didn't know why he survived. It was a miracle.
Yes.
And so years later, he got Crohn's disease, which is really terrible. He's taken all this medication for it. There was a fraudulent doctor in North Carolina who was overdosing all his patients, and he died from an overdose and had another near-death experience and survived that. And then in 2007, he took his construction crew out to celebrate building $1 million home, and they went out in the Cape Fear River on a fishing trip. And Christopher, unfortunately, couldn't fish because his Crohn's disease made him so uncomfortable he had to go for a walk. So he says, I'm going to walk back up the hill we came down, and you guys just fish. And his son was and these guys were like ZZ Top, Duck Dynasty, roofers, kind of like, and so he went up the hill. As he was walking up the hill, he's a hunter. He felt like someone was stalking him as he went up the hill. He got to the top of the hill, and he, sees a bunch of strange lights in the sky, like 3 lights. And he's an airline pilot, so he knew that that wasn't the sun and some stars.
Right.
And so
he was also an airplane pilot.
A commercial airline pilot. Yeah. So he ducks behind a bush, gets kind of creeped out, and then he runs back down the hill. And he had gone up the hill at 5:30. When he got back to the fishing camp, his reefers were like, where the hell you been, man? It's dark, and it was like 4 hours later, so he had lost the whole 4 hours of his life. And the roofers were like, and your son disappeared. He went off looking for you, and they found his son huddled under a bush in a fetal position, babbling about the little creatures with the red eyes. And so in the midst of all this, the roofers were getting pretty freaked out. And then across the river, these 3 ships land on the ground right across the river, like 100 yards away. And by this time, they just jump in a pickup truck and they fly up the hill. And Christopher, the story just goes on. He finally at the top of the hill, there's a ship on the ground blocking their exit. Somebody shoots a gun. The ship disappears, and they finally get home. He locks himself in his house, like that's going to really help, And
right.
And then he and his son are in the house, and they hear their hunting dogs barking in the backyard. So one of the big hunting dogs goes out the door. They follow the dog in the back, and then the dog disappears. And Christopher turns around, and there's a little gray alien standing right in front of him. And Christopher kind of goes, "Oh yeah, you got me," and then the dog runs up, and the thing disappears. So they go back in the house again, lock the doors again, and then they look out the kitchen window, and there's 8-foot-tall beings on the front lawn. He says, "That's it, I'm leaving," and he gets in the pickup truck and drives away. And they sleep in a field somewhere, and he forgets to take his Crohn's medications with him, and he never takes it again. He's completely healed. And in the MUFON investigation that they put in the TV show, they actually put him under hypnosis, and he goes back and has this whole experience of being taken on a ship and all kinds of wild stuff.
Having it done,
But he
yeah.
does have a recall of being healed by the White Lady. So the shimmering E.T. Blessed Virgin Mary basically healed him, and his Crohn's disease went away. And now he realizes that when he was 10, they took him up in the ship, healed him, and brought him back down after he got the shotgun. So.
Oh, he was only 10 when that happened.
When the shotgun happened. So he realizes now that they've been watching him the whole time and taking care of him. So
really interesting. Do you know Russell Targ? I'm sure you do.
I met him years ago at a parapsychology
meeting. Yeah. I'm reading a book on him right now. I'm hoping to interview him because I'm really so interested in all of that.
Well, and now and the punchline now is that Christopher is collaborating with a religious scholar, a Catholic scholar from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, who wrote a book called American Cosmic, UFOs, Religion, and Technology, talking about how UFOs are the new American religion. And
interesting.
And they've been in Hollywood for the last 7 years negotiating a TV series that's supposed to come out next year, and it's going to be called American Cosmic. And the White Lady comes back to visit Christopher every couple years, and she came last Easter and gave him predictions that we were heading into a 7-year period of tribulation and until 2026. So,
well, it's so. Do you think that he was healed? Does he feel as if his purpose now is that they're giving him information to share with the world?
Yeah. She comes back every once in a while and tells him, start speaking up again, and now's the time to get your story out. So, yeah.
Right. Wow. Fascinating. It's so, I know for my listeners, some of you are just probably like, oh my gosh, they're totally going off on me. But as I always say, is that I always remember a quote by Wayne Dyer, and it's not that I'm calling anyone ignorant at all, even though that's not a bad word. It's just not knowing. But the ultimate ignorance is completely rejecting an idea, yet refusing to investigate.
Sure.
And when you begin to investigate these sorts of things, in my mind, it's irrefutable, all of it. And I've been under an investigative surge for the last quite a few years. What is the history of dreams in medicine and healing?
Well, that goes way back to, the Aboriginals actually, have been doing the dream time for 50,000 years. But in modern times, it's really the Asclepian temples of Greece, where people would make a pilgrimage to the Asclepian temple. Asclepius was the Greek god of medicine and healing, and they would go there with the intention of being healed of some condition. And when they arrived, they would sleep in the temple in hopes of having a dream that would guide their healing process. In the morning, the priest would interpret their dream for them and help them. And sometimes if the dream was powerful enough, they'd be healed instantly, by the dream itself.
Right.
So, and then Native Americans have a long tradition of shamanic big dreams. Those are the dreams that wake you up and startle you and are more real than real. And many shamans put a lot of credence in dreams. Many of the great Native American prophets had dreams and visions. And of course, one of the principal spiritual practices is the vision quest, where you go through, like it's basically a dream quest, and you want to be sleep deprived and go without food until you have a vision.
So how can one in Western civilization, where this is all, it's unfortunate that many have dreams. They just think, oh, that wasn't real. I had this crazy dream. How can one interpret their dreams, or even possibly try to dream about something that they want to find out, or use the word incubate
or
yes.
The first thing to do is just get yourself a dream diary. I usually use those little composition books from the drugstore, and the key thing is just write down a question you want an answer to. That's the way you start. And it could be a
Right.
question about a relationship, about job, about a health problem, whatever it is, whatever's on your mind, just make it a concrete intention to remember a dream about it, and then go to sleep. And any dream that you get that night is going to be related to that question. Even though it seems to have no connection to it whatsoever, it's still an answer
Right.
from the dream world. And just writing that question down tells the dream world you're open for business. So, get ready. And many people say, "Oh, I don't remember my dreams," but as soon as they do that, they start remembering them. So,
Interesting.
and the only rule is you can only ask one question a night, because you want to know what the dreams are answering.
Right.
And you can ask the same question every night until you get an answer. It's fine. Or you can ask a clarifying dream, which means you got a weird dream last night. I want to know what it means, so ask another
Yes.
one. So
Yeah. I know when I've had dreams, especially of loved ones who have passed, those dreams are so vivid and so much more real than what I'm going to call a regular dream. Is that the same for when you ask these questions? Is it usually
those dreams we're talking
different
about
for everybody?
are visitation dreams. And when people
Yes.
the true visitation, the most memorable ones are the ones when people appear and they seem to be in the prime of life. They might have been old and dying, but when they come back to you, they are like,
Yes.
you may have not even recognized them because you didn't know them when they were that age. But that's the
Right.
classic visitation dream. And some of these diagnostic dreams, or like the breast cancer dreamer said, they were more vivid or more real than any dream they've ever had before. So yeah, there's
Right.
and some of the dream researchers talk about ordinary dreams, and Jung talked about ordinary dreams, just like leftovers from the day that you're just sort of processing, versus the big archetypal dreams that are like, got to pay attention to, or the recurrent
Right.
dreams, or those sorts of things.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was reading the other day that Jung actually had a near-death experience. I didn't realize
I
that.
didn't know that either, but he certainly, when he wrote the Red Book, he was going through a spiritual death experience. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can one use dreams for healing?
Yeah. Okay. So the diagnostic dreams were the basis of the book, but we did include several chapters on healing dreams. And it's the weirdest thing about the book that still puzzles me to this day is, out of the 18 women, only one of them had a dream about holistic therapies, and that was my friend who had the precognitive dream about the woman surgeon. She dreamed about raw vegetables and went on a raw food diet and, did well on that. But almost all the other ones dreamed about getting strong chemo or radiation or surgery. And this was
Interesting.
puzzling, because these are all very intuitive women who are having these dreams. I assumed they'd go do ayahuasca, go
Right,
on
right.
a shamanic journey, do the macrobiotic diet. None of that.
Yeah.
That puzzled me. That was like, okay, that's really integrative medicine. They're being guided to use whatever medicine's going to work for them. So.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess that a combination of both, and everybody sometimes the drug therapy is definitely
Puzzled
needed.
me, I'll tell you.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that this kind of work, I know we're just at the very surface of it, but keeping a journal and writing your dreams down, it just gives it, I get the vision of, I know the Native American, I can't tell you specifically the name of the tribe, but they would, in the morning, they would gather all the children around, and the first thing they would talk about are their dreams. And they believed, which I'm very open to this, is that the dream world is actually more real than this, is as real as this world here. And you hear that in near death experiences all the time, that when they are on the other side, that's what I'm going to call it right now, um they're more vivid, more alive. It's so much more real than our this earthly realm. So how do you think that we could use this information with children
Yeah,
to
I think
help
it'd be a
them?
great tradition to reestablish and have the breakfast table be the dream table, every morning, and you get and I mean, I was fortunate that my daughter did that on her own when she was 2 or 3. She started making these illustrated dream journals of all the scary, like, villains in her dreams and all the heroes, and we bound them for her, and she had this whole, like, dream books, so.
Wow, when she was 2 or 3.
2 or 3, yeah, and then she went on to become a creative writer, so interesting.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up, but do you have any words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to share?
I guess if you go to either larryburk.com or letmagichappen.com, you can watch the TED Talk and click on the thing to get your Keeping a Dream Diary blog, and you can learn to keep your dream diary. And then I've got a lot of other blogs that you can watch. So.
Wow. Well, I've learned a lot today. Well, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in today. If you want to learn more about the show, you can find us at interviewswithinnocence.com and on Facebook or Instagram at Interviews with Innocence. Please write me a message, tell me what you liked, and let me know what else you would like to hear. I would love to hear from you. And if you liked what you heard, please leave us an iTunes rating and review. It helps other listeners find the show. Thank you.